Hey, Tommy Vasseur, the Camo Gourmet, and this is one of the simplest recipes I will ever produce for you. This is organically sourced, locally sourced bison. As you can tell, it's extremely lean, about 50% leaner than average beef. Organic, hormone-free, antibiotic-free. This is the kind of food that we want to work with to feed our families. Today we're going to make a simple recipe, and it's an espresso-based rub. It's really like a blackened rub, and it contains 4 or 5 ingredients that I'm certain you have in your own home. We're going to get this thing all rubbed up and ready for a hot oil pan. It's going to be delicious. This is an espresso-based rub, so I got some good ground espresso already prepared. Salt, of course, which is almost the main binder ingredient in almost all rubs. Most of them have a lot. We're going to use a reduced form and not as much, and try to supplement it with some natural herbs. One of my favorite things in the world, curry powder. It really gives a mild flavor and kind of works as a buffer between the coffee and the spices. And of course, smoked paprika, one of my favorite things in the world. If you can get your hands on this, please do. It is wonderful. And the last but not least, pepper. Use pepper as kind of a binder and to give it flavor. And if you really want to spice it up, we're going to use just a pinch of crushed red peppers. Mix that all up. Try to spread it out in the pan. The mixing bowl here. Now that we've prepared this rub, we're going to apply it to the meat. And one thing I wanted to share with you earlier, it's a real good idea to try to get the meat out maybe 15-20 minutes so it can get a little bit warmer, kind of exposed. So these tissues in here in the meat, they open up a little bit. You know, there's a lot of water in here. So meat, like cheeses and other proteins, it helps if it sweats a little bit and you pad dry it off before you put it into a rub. It'll absorb a lot more and get a lot more deeper into the tissue. I'm gonna get this thing all lathered up for us. Look how well this rub adhered because we let this sit out at room temperature for a little while. It sweated off a little bit of the moisture. Now we've filled those same pores, those same tissue cells with the rub. So this is gonna be fantastic. Now we're ready to get this thing cooked. Got a hot pan going. I'm gonna add a little oil to my cast iron skillet. You know, there are actually nutritional benefits that come from cooking from a cast iron skillet. One of the things I recommend. We'll talk a little bit more about that in another show, and also be on the lookout for our line of new cast iron skillets and other cooking accessories from the Camo Gourmet. Pan's hot, oil's hot. Remember what I talked about? Don't ever put a protein in a cold pan with cold oil. As you can hear, that is the sound of success. I'm gonna try to get this to a point or I can just keep it sizzling. Again, I prefer rare. I'm gonna make this dish medium rare for my guests tonight. It doesn't take long. There's not a lot of fat in it. It cooks that fast. You've got to be hypersensitive to the fact of what the texture of meat is. Without using an internal electronic gauge or a meat thermometer, you can usually go by the basic book of rare, medium rare. This area of your hand typically represents meat that feels rare or is not cooked. This area of your hand, if you can feel the texture, is of meat that is medium to medium rare and ready to be plated. We learned that in the restaurant industry. No time to use meat thermometers when you got 20 steaks on the grill. You can see how that's really adhering. This actually looks just about right now. After I take this piece of meat out, I'm always gonna let it rest so that the juices that are being pushed to the outside as this is being cooked now return back into the interior where the cooler parts of the meat is. Always recommend letting pieces of meat rest. If you need to keep a warm oven around just to keep it warm, that's great. Obviously we want it to get cold. And again, we gave that a chance to rest for about 3.5–4 minutes. Make sure of my work. I don't think my guests will mind. Oh, look at that. Just perfect. Nailed it. We're going to make it with a nice tomato garnish side. See how simple this was? Look how easy this is. Just balsamic vinegar. Nothing special. Sprinkle some kosher salt, a little garnish. Now, didn't that work out pretty easy? These are exactly the kind of meals that we're talking about. Simple, took about 15 minutes. Same stuff that you had in your cupboard hit home. Little help from my garden, little rosemary, tomato. This is exactly what we're talking about at the Camo Gourmet. This is a meal that's going to be shared well and shared often with friends of mine and your family too. I'm Tommy Vasseur, the Camo Gourmet. Be well, live well, and eat well.